Welcome to this explainer. Let's just dive right in, because today we are looking at one of the most intense physical and psychological endurance tests you could possibly imagine. Picture this. You're dropped into the freezing, unforgiving Arctic with absolutely nothing but the clothes on your back. There's no safety net, no immediate shelter, just 5 friends and a ticking clock. For the next 7 days, they have to survive an environment that is actively trying to freeze them out. So you might be wondering, why on earth would anyone volunteer for this madness?
Well, team leader Jimmy summed up their motivation perfectly with just one thought. I'm not failing again. You see, this isn't just your standard survival challenge. It's a desperate redemption arc. The team had actually attempted a similar challenge recently, and they failed. So the psychological weight of that past failure is just hanging over them from minute one. It's the entire driving force pushing them into this frozen wasteland. Giving up a second time, literally not an option.
All right, let's get into part 1, stranded in the Arctic. The terrifying reality of their situation sets in the absolute second their boots hit 2 feet of snow. The harsh truth of the Arctic is that daylight is a luxury, and they are racing against a sunset that's going to bring fatal below-zero temperatures. Now, contrast the absolute non-negotiables of Arctic survival, shelter, fire, and food, with what they actually brought. Jimmy explicitly told the boys not to bring tents. Their firewood ended up getting completely soaked. And to top it all off, someone forgot the designated poop tent. So now, they have to navigate going to the bathroom in a landscape where wandering off could literally attract polar bears. It's chaotic, and it immediately puts their lives at massive risk.
And this wasn't just a static waiting game. The environment continuously escalated the stakes. Day 1 starts with this cramped, freezing snow cave where Jimmy literally catches his own pants on fire just trying to stay warm. By day 2, the harsh medical reality hits with frost nip. Day 4 rolls around and brings a brutal blizzard that completely buries their gear. In fact, it isn't until day 5 that they manage to secure a real source of food. Every single day compounded the physical and mental exhaustion of the day before.
Which brings us to Section 2, the shelter and warmth crisis.
Moving into those first few nights, the extreme cold forces them to completely rethink their initial survival strategy, because you really can't just tough out below zero temperatures. The desperate evolution of their shelter became a literal matter of life and death. Step 1 was just a snow hole. It was so tight they were packed in like sardines just to share body heat. But after the worst sleep of their lives, they realized that just wouldn't sustain them for a week. So step 2, they start foraging spruce branches, because the frozen ground was rapidly sapping their core body heat and the branches provided absolutely crucial insulation. Finally, step 3, carving out a massive expansion, a snow mansion if you will, so they could actually sleep side by side without freezing to death.
But even with the upgraded shelter, the cold was just relentless. Let's talk about frostnip. It's the superficial freezing of skin tissues, and it's a terrifying reality that hit them hard on day 2. Chandler pulled off his boots, only to reveal toes that were stark white and completely numb. This is the immediate precursor to severe frostbite, where you can actually start losing digits. To save Chandler's toes, they resorted to something wild, sticking his bare, freezing foot directly into their cameraman Darius's armpit just to transfer some core body heat. It was a raw, desperate fight against the elements.
Let's look closer at that in Section 3, fighting off frostnip.
This right here brilliantly illustrates the psychological torture of the entire challenge. Because the thing is, they aren't actually trapped. Every single day, a plane flies overhead. They have a flare gun. At literally any moment, any one of them can pull that trigger and just go home to a warm bed. But there's a huge catch. To leave, you have to shave your head. So it is an active, agonizing choice every single minute to stay in this frozen wasteland. That flare gun just sits there, tempting them, constantly reminding them that their suffering is 100% voluntary.
But right when they think they've got the shelter situation figured out, they hit a literal wall of ice. 6 feet. That is the devastating thickness of the ice sheet they tried to drill through on day 3 to catch some fish. Their auger completely maxed out, and they still hadn't hit water. Imagine all that energy expended for absolutely nothing. Morale just completely tanked, and they were forced to hike back to camp, hungry, freezing, and totally defeated.
So we move into Section 4, the desperate hunt for food.
By day 5, things go from bad to an absolute nightmare. A massive blizzard rolls in and grounds the rescue plane, meaning they couldn't even leave if they wanted to. And the worst part? They've just eaten their very last beef stick. The physiological math of the Arctic is brutal but simple. Eating is heating. Your body is burning massive amounts of calories just to shiver and keep your core temperature up. Without new calories coming in, your body simply cannot generate heat.
Starving in an environment like this, it quickly leads to hypothermia and then death.
Faced with that terrifying reality, the team commits to a grueling 7-hour journey. Really think about that number for a second. 7 hours. Exhausted, freezing, and running on 0 calories, they strap on cross-country skis and snowshoes, pushing through dense forests and heavy snow just to reach a river they spotted earlier with a drone. The logic was that running water meant thinner ice, and thankfully they were right. They finally managed to break through an 8-inch section of ice. But then, the agonizing wait in the freezing wind begins.
As Jimmy sits there freezing over that tiny little hole in the ice, the tension is just peaking. Down to their very last meal, are they actually going to fail another survival challenge? The snow is picking up fast. Jimmy openly admits he's losing faith. His hands are freezing, and the fear of back-to-back failures is absolutely crushing him. If they don't catch a fish right then and there, they have to shoot the flare the very next day. This entire redemption arc is hanging by a literal thread.
And then, bam, we got one. The exact moment the tension finally breaks. The fishing line pulls tight, and it's like pure adrenaline is ejected directly into this frozen, exhausted crew. After days of starvation and sheer misery, the sight of a fish tugging on that line is nothing short of a miracle.
But the chaos is just getting started. As the fish breaches the surface, the hook gets totally caught on the lip of the ice. In a moment of pure, unadulterated panic and excitement, Jimmy yells, "I got it with my hand," and reaches directly into the freezing Arctic water, totally barehanded, to grab the fish. It is a massive, impulsive mistake born out of just sheer, blinding desperation.
Which immediately leads to this completely devastating, heart-stopping second. No! Did you just lose it? The slippery fish slides right out of his freezing bare hands and drops straight back toward the hole. For a split second, it looks like their only source of food, and their entire reason for being out there, is about to swim away, ending the whole challenge in total failure.
And that brings us to our final section, Ultimate Redemption. Luckily, against all odds, they managed to recover that first fish right before it slips away into the depths. But you know the rule of the wild, where there's one, there are usually more. So they drop the line back in, and the final tally comes to 2. 2 massive, fresh, calorie-dense fish pulled straight from the frozen river. Cooking those up over a fire built from shaved, dry wood completely transformed the team. It gave them the essential calories to generate body heat, a massive, much-needed boost in morale, and the sheer willpower to survive all the way to the morning of day 7. Which leaves us with this final, somewhat provocative thought. When pushed to the literal freezing point, how far would you go to rewrite your own failures? Because as you've seen, this explainer wasn't just about battling 6 feet of ice or fighting off Frostnib. It was a profound psychological victory over a past defeat. They faced the daily temptation of that rescue flare, they endured the agonizing cold, and they pushed through starvation, all just to prove to themselves that they wouldn't quit twice. Really makes you wonder about your own resilience, doesn't it? Well, thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you on the next one.